They told everyone I gave up. They said I was dramatic, needy, too loud, too much. I let them talk while I shrank myself down to be easier to love. But shrinking is a slow kind of dying. He once said, "You're too intense, Rachel. You feel too hard. You dream too big." Like my fire was a threat instead of warmth. Like loving out loud was a flaw. So I dimmed my light until I disappeared in my own life. But here's what no one tells you. The parts they call too much are the exact parts that make you unstoppable when you stop apologizing for them. I'm Rachel. I'm 29. I live in Austin, Texas. And this is how being too much became the best thing I ever was. I was the girl everyone expected to go far. Honor roll by 12. Debate team captain by 15. Accepted into the University of Texas on a full academic scholarship, business and communications. Even my high school counselor used to say, "Rachel's going places. Just wait." I wanted to believe her. I really did. Back then, I believed success came with a checklist. Graduate. Land the high-paying job. Get engaged by 28. Smile at the office parties. Get promoted. Buy a home with double sinks. I didn't see the trap until I was already halfway in. I met Daniel Carter when I was 25. He was polished, older, confident in a way that made me feel small and special all at once. He was a marketing director at a big tech firm in Dallas, and he had this way of making every room feel like it revolved around him. At first, I was enchanted. He'd say things like, "You're the smartest person in the room. I love that about you." But slowly, the word shifted. "Don't be so passionate all the time. People find you a little intense, Rachel. Not every argument needs your opinion." I thought he was just helping me polish my edges. That's how he put it. By the time I turned 26, I was exhausted from editing myself. I started dressing how he liked, muted colors, soft tones. Stopped raising my voice in meetings. Stopped dancing in the kitchen. Stopped laughing too loud. Stopped being me. But I was hitting milestones. On paper, everything looked great. I was working at a boutique PR firm downtown, rising fast. Daniel and I were the power couple. I even made it to the Austin 30 under 30 watch list for young professionals. People looked at me and thought, "She's made it." But inside, I was unraveling. Each day began with a pit in my stomach. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, asking questions like, "Is this it? Am I the problem? Why does love feel like walking on glass?" It all came to a head one night at a friend's engagement party. We were seated at a table with Daniel's work colleagues. They were talking about an AI campaign I'd quietly helped him brainstorm. He gave me no credit. I tried to chime in just casually. He smiled and placed a hand on my thigh, like a quiet warning, and said, "Let me handle this, babe. You're getting worked up again." Everyone laughed like I was a little girl playing grown-up. I smiled through it. But something inside me cracked open that night. When we got home, I confronted him. His response? "You're just too much sometimes, Rachel. You overwhelm people. And honestly, I'm tired." 3 weeks later, he left. No fight. No drama. Just a note on the fridge. "You deserve someone who can handle all that." All that. As if my personality was a burden. As if my love was excess baggage. I moved into a smaller apartment, 1 bedroom, no view, across from a gas station. I quit my job 2 months later after having a full-on panic attack in the office bathroom. My parents didn't understand. "Just take some time off," my mother said. "Maybe focus on finding someone who balances you out." My brother, always the realist, said, "Maybe the corporate world's not for you. Try something more low-key. Less stress." To them, I was the burnout. The one who had so much promise but couldn't hold it together. My aunt called me a free spirit, like it was a diagnosis. My friends stopped inviting me out. Even my best friend, Kara, pulled away. She got engaged. I didn't get an invite. She said it was just a small thing. But I saw the pictures online. There were 60 people there. I wasn't one of them. I stayed inside a lot. Tried freelancing. Tried yoga. Tried journaling, therapy, cooking classes. Nothing stuck. I was just a shadow of the girl who once lit up every room. And no one noticed she was gone. Not even me. But something strange happened in the silence. A soft voice emerged. My own. Not loud. Not angry. Just tired of hiding. And that's when I began again. No applause. No crowd. Just one step at a time. Barefoot, bruised, and finally real. I don't remember the exact day it shifted. Not a single lightning moment. No fireworks. No epiphany. Just small things. A neighbor's cat started sitting on my windowsill. I found myself talking to it like a friend. That's how quiet my life had become. Empty spaces spoke louder than people ever did. One afternoon, while scrolling mindlessly through Craigslist, I saw a volunteer ad from a local community center, seeking help teaching basic tech to senior citizens. No experience needed. I don't know what made me click reply. Maybe I was tired of being invisible. Maybe I missed the sound of my own voice in a room. The community center was just 10 blocks away, hidden between a laundromat and an abandoned floral shop. I walked in and met Mrs. Kennedy, the director. She had silver hair twisted into a bun and red glasses that slid down her nose every 5 seconds. You ever taught before? She asked. Not officially. That's fine. We don't need perfect. We need kind. So I started showing up every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. I'd bring a notebook, a few granola bars, and a box of tissues because, surprise, teaching tech to people born before 1950 came with tears. Lots of them. The first woman I worked with was Dolores, 83. She walked with a cane wrapped in pink duct tape. When I asked her what she wanted to learn, she said, "This machine hates me. I want to email my grandson in Korea." We started with turning the laptop on. Day by day, we moved from opening a browser to typing out a message. Her fingers shook. Her eyes watered. And then, one morning, she typed 5 words all by herself. "Hi, baby. I miss you." She hit send, stared at the screen, and then whispered, "You brought my baby into my living room." That moment cracked something open in me. It was the first time I'd felt useful in months. No paycheck. No spotlight. Just one woman, and one email that made the world feel whole again. I kept coming back. And little by little, so did the pieces of me I thought were lost. I began laughing again. Not the polite kind, the belly-deep kind. I'd stay after sessions and help clean up. Sometimes we'd sit on the front steps and talk about nothing. Old recipes, broken hearts, what music used to sound like. One day, Mrs. Kennedy pulled me aside and said, "You've got a gift, Rachel. People feel seen around you." I nodded, unsure what to say. I didn't feel like a gift. I still had nightmares about Daniel's words. Still found myself whispering apologies for things I didn't do. Still avoided mirrors on bad days. But I was moving, breathing, building something. I started blogging again. Not the PR stuff from my old life. Just quiet reflections. Stories from the center. Things like what Dolores taught me about showing up even when your hands shake. How technology became the bridge for a woman who hadn't seen her son in 12 years. The blog had no followers, no fancy layout, but it felt sacred. One afternoon, I got an email from someone named Sophie, a social worker in Detroit. She'd stumbled on my blog through a Facebook post and wanted to replicate something similar in her community center. She ended her message with, "You write like someone who's been to the edge and came back with flowers." I read that line 5 times. I never thought of it that way, but maybe I had. Eventually, I named the blog More Than Enough, because that's what I wanted every woman to feel. That she wasn't broken, difficult, or too much. That she was more than enough, especially on the days she didn't feel like it. I added a newsletter. Started a small Zoom support group for women dealing with emotional burnout. Some days, only 3 people showed up. But we'd cry together, and laugh, and say things out loud that had lived too long in silence. Someone once shared, "I used to think I had to become smaller to be loved. Now I just want to become real." That line stayed with me. I wasn't making money, was barely making rent, but I was making meaning, and that mattered. It didn't make headlines. No one asked me to speak at a TED Talk. But every time Dolores sent a message to her grandson, every time someone said, "Your words helped me sleep last night," I felt a little less like a ghost. I was still healing, still uncertain, still rebuilding from the inside out. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to disappear. By the start of the next year, I was running 3 digital literacy classes a week, plus 2 evening Zoom circles. We called them the Loud Women Club. Half joke, half truth. What began with 5 confused seniors grew into a steady stream of 20, then 50. Dolores brought her bridge partner. Mrs. Kennedy dragged in her skeptical brother. People came because someone told them. She's patient. She listens. She doesn't make you feel stupid. In 6 months, we had 1,200 seniors enrolled. I created a free guidebook called Click with Confidence. The local paper did a 2-line blurb, but the real feedback came in handwritten letters, shaky, ink-smudged notes like, "You gave me my dignity back." I emailed my daughter for the first time since she moved to London. I FaceTimed my great-grandson, and he cried when he saw my face. It felt unreal. I got calls from other cities, nonprofits asking for my templates. A women's collective in Portland asked me to lead a virtual seminar on emotional burnout and tech healing. I said yes, nervously. Then came the numbers. The More Than Enough blog hit 50,000 monthly readers. The newsletter open rate hovered at 78%, higher than some of the Fortune 500s I used to draft press pitches for. I got a tiny grant from a tech nonprofit. Nothing fancy, $5,000. But it allowed me to buy tablets for 10 seniors who couldn't afford one. I hand-delivered each device with sticky notes labeled, "This is your portal. You're allowed to dream." People began calling me a founder. I laughed the first time. I still lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with thrifted furniture and second-hand cookware. But yes, technically, I had founded something. Something real. I started writing a book in the evenings. Not a how-to. A story. My story. But not about Daniel. About rebuilding. About shame. About what happens when you're told to shrink and choose to expand instead. I didn't tell anyone in my family, because by then, I'd learned they weren't watching. And if they were, they didn't understand what they were seeing. My mother called once and asked, "So, what is it you do again? You're not working in PR anymore?" I explained the classes, the blog, the book draft. There was a pause. Then she said, "Well, that's nice. I just wish you had something more stable." My brother was blunter. "Teaching old folks how to use Gmail? That's your big thing?" Then he laughed. "You've always been the free spirit. I guess this makes sense." I smiled on the phone, hung up, then cried into a cup of chamomile tea I forgot I made. I didn't tell them about the Zoom call where a woman named Jada said, "I stopped self-harming because your newsletter reminded me to believe myself over their voices." I didn't tell them about the 6,000 women who downloaded the free workbook in one weekend, or the article I ghostwrote for a therapist that went viral on Medium, or the night Dolores passed away, and her daughter emailed me to say, "Your classes were the highlight of her final year." Instead, I sent my mom a photo of the garden I'd started growing on my windowsill. She replied, "Looks nice. But you were never the nurturing type." I deleted the message, but I kept the basil alive. Some nights I'd lie in bed and wonder what they were waiting for. A salary? A LinkedIn title they could brag about? Did they need me to be exhausted again, just to feel proud? Recognition came, but from strangers. Not the people I thought I needed it from. And maybe that was the lesson. You can bloom wild and loud, and still be invisible to those who only see you through the eyes of who you were. The ones who never updated their version of you. The ones who left your name stuck in a chapter you outgrew. But I wasn't stuck. I was soaring, even if no one clapped. It was a Thursday evening when I walked into the Gathering Room, a cozy independent bookstore tucked inside a former post office in East Austin. The owner had invited me to do a self-launch for my book, More Than Enough. Nothing flashy. No banners. Just 25 folding chairs, a mic stand, and a small table with 5 stacks of my book, bound in cream linen, gold foil title pressed onto the cover. My heart was a metronome of nerves. This wasn't just paper. This was me. Everything I'd felt too ashamed to say out loud. Everything I'd survived. Bound, typed, titled, and offered like a gift I didn't know if anyone wanted. The first 15 minutes were a blur. I read a passage, talked about Dolores, shared how the blog became a lifeline for people I'd never met. And then, during the Q&A, a woman stood up in the back. Dark curls, red lips, wearing a green linen jumpsuit that somehow made her look both confident and fragile. She held her phone like it was a lifeline. "This might sound weird," she said, "but your name, Rachel Summers, it sounded familiar when I saw the event poster." I couldn't figure out why. The room was quiet. She continued, "2 years ago, I was in a relationship that left me very broken. I didn't know who I was anymore. I started Googling things like feeling too much, too emotional to be loved, how to shrink yourself." I didn't breathe. Her voice trembled. I found this blog. More than enough. It was like oxygen. The way it spoke, like someone had lived inside my head. I swallowed hard. She pulled her phone up and opened an email. I subscribed to the newsletter. I printed out every one. I kept them in a shoebox under my bed. People around her nodded, some silently tearing up. Then she paused. One day, I finally left him. I packed a bag and went to my sister's place. On the way there, I reread a line from your blog. "You are not too much. You were just in the wrong room." She smiled, but her eyes were glassy. That line saved me. I still hadn't spoken. I just stared at her. This stranger whose life had somehow entangled with mine through words I typed in my pajamas at 2 a.m., hoping someone, anyone, would understand. "Anyway," she went on, clearing her throat, "I'm getting married next month. To someone gentle. Someone who lets me be loud." A small laugh broke through the silence. Then she said, "My fiancé's name is Daniel." Different guy. But get this, my ex? Also named Daniel. Weird, right? The room chuckled softly. But my heart skipped a beat. Daniel. The Daniel. She said his last name. And it was him. Daniel Carter. She glanced down at the cover of the book in her hand. "Anyway, thank you, Rachel. I don't know where I'd be if you hadn't written what you wrote." Her voice cracked. The room clapped. People cried. And I just stood there, frozen. Because here was the woman my ex once moved on to, standing in a bookstore, unknowingly thanking the very woman he'd broken. When the event ended, she came to the signing table, held her copy of More Than Enough like it was a relic. "You're even more powerful in person," she smiled. Then leaned in and whispered, "You must have been through something big to write like that." I smiled gently. We all go through something. She never connected the dots. Never recognized me. Or maybe she did and chose grace over confrontation. Either way, she left, glowing with her new life. And I sat there, signing books in silence. Not because I needed applause, but because the universe had just walked my truth back into the room. And it refused to stay quiet. I went home that night and opened the last draft of my manuscript. I added a final page. Blank, except for one line in the center. Not all stories need revenge. Some just need to be seen. A week after the bookstore event, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. Pale pink envelope. No return address. Just my name in cursive. Inside was a simple note. "I read your book. I don't know what to say, except I'm sorry. I see it now. I see you, Mom." No explanations. No phone call. Just that. I sat at the kitchen counter, staring at the paper for a long time. My tea went cold beside me. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. I folded the letter and tucked it into the back of More Than Enough, between the last chapter and the dedication. Not to remember her words, but to honor how far I'd come without needing them. Later that month, my brother sent me a video link. No caption. Just a TEDx talk. I clicked it. It was me. Someone had recorded my session at the Portland seminar and uploaded it. The comments were pouring in. "She speaks like she's holding your heart in her hands. This is what real healing sounds like." I wish I'd heard this 10 years ago. He didn't say anything else. But 2 days later, he Venmo'd me $50 with the note. Coffee. Or whatever makes you feel loud today. That was his version of an apology. I took it. I never printed their messages. I didn't hang them on my wall. I didn't add them to my website's testimonials. I just kept them. Quietly. Softly. Like pressed flowers in a book. Delicate and unexpected. My apartment hasn't changed much. Still the same one-bedroom. Same thrift store couch. But now it smells like basil and lavender. I have a candle on the windowsill that reads, "She wasn't too much. She was just enough for the wrong people." I light it every night. My days are full. Still running classes. Still answering emails from women across the world. Still writing, but now from a place of peace, not pain. I don't check social media metrics the way I used to. I stopped counting shares. Stopped obsessing over growth. Because the biggest growth happened in silence. I no longer need to convince anyone. Not Daniel. Not my mother. Not myself. I'm not trying to prove that I'm enough anymore. I just am. It's in the way I walk into a room now. Shoulders back. No apology in my presence. It's in how I say no without guilt. In how I cry without shame. In how I laugh loudly and don't look around to see if anyone approves. Sometimes people still tell me I'm intense. I say, thank you. And I mean it. Because it wasn't pride I found. It was peace. A quiet knowing that being whole in a world that wants you broken is the loudest kind of triumph. If you've ever been told you're too much, too loud, too sensitive, too ambitious, too opinionated, too emotional, too hard to love, this story is for you. Because the truth is, you are never too much. You were just more than some people had the courage to understand. And that's not your burden. That's your brilliance. I used to wake up dreading the echo of silence from people I loved. Now I wake up with an inbox full of strangers who call me sister, warrior, mirror. I used to twist myself into smaller versions just to be tolerated. Now I take up space on purpose. Not to be seen, but because I exist. And that's enough. If you're watching this and you're still in the thick of it, still shrinking, still biting your tongue, still keeping your stories inside, you are not alone. You are not broken. You are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You are real. You are layered. You are the kind of person who will make someone else feel like they're finally home. And if that makes you too much for the wrong people, it will make you everything for the right ones. So here's what I want to ask you. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. Not just your city, but your story. Tell me about the time you almost gave up.
Tell me what you're still carrying.
Tell me how you're finding your way back to yourself. Because somewhere, someone needs your words the way I once needed mine. This channel isn't about perfection. It's about process. It's about quiet victories, second chances, and the kind of healing that doesn't come with confetti but with breath and truth and time. If you're still holding on, still waking up, still finding your feet, I'm proud of you. Even if no one said it lately. Especially if no one said it lately. You deserve to be big. To take up space. To feel fully. To love without apology. To cry without explanation. To rise without permission. And if the world ever makes you doubt it, just come back to this story. Because I was once told I was too much.
And now
I am more than they could ever handle. Thank you for listening. Thank you for feeling with me. Thank you for letting this story live inside your own. We'll be back with more stories. Real ones. Hard ones. Beautiful ones. Until then, be loud. Be soft. Be you. You are more than enough. Always.